Welcome to Light It Up, a podcast about resilient women balancing motherhood, their careers, personal lives, and all of the challenges that come along with being a superwoman. Each week, you'll be motivated to take action to lead, inspire, transform, and empower. Now, here's your host, Dr. Aginah M. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Light It Up. I am your host, Dr. Aginah M. I'm so excited about this week's episode. I know you guys probably say that every week, but every week I have an outstanding guest. And this week, my guest is someone who goes back, I think 32 years, if I do the math correctly, because she just had a birthday. Jeanine A. Rogers is my guest this week. And if you don't know her, Jeanine is the author of a brand new novel, Don't Smell Like Smoke. Check this cover out. It is the bomb. Anyway, so welcome to Light It Up, Jeanine. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Aginah. I'm so excited to be here and share a little bit about this new project.
Yes, I'm so excited for you because you just released your brand new book, your first time author. But before we talk about that, because that's the fun stuff, I did say that we go back like 32 years, so that makes us sound old, but we are not.
No, we're only 25.
That's
So
right. That's
that math.
Right. So you and I actually went to junior high and high school together. We are proud Morgan Park alums. Yes. And so we went through 7th and 8th grade together, high school. And what's really interesting is that you and I both ended up in education as well.
Right.
So I don't know if you really want to share with folks what you do professionally or not. It's up to you.
Sure.
But if you could just take a few minutes just to kind of tell the audience who you are.
Yes, I don't mind sharing. It's part of my journey. So yes, 32 years, that does make us sound a little older, but we are still in the prime of our lives. Yes, it is funny. So I started out as a teacher in education and went into administration. This is my 8th year in administration, and I am currently an assistant principal in Chicago Public Schools.
Yeah.
It's a really exciting journey. I think the education part of my journey helped me write this book because it's part of my life.
Okay.
Yes. So I'm currently mom to a college girl who's in her sophomore year, nursing school.
Yay, you're an empty nester.
Yes, I am. Yes.
We could probably have some other conversations because I'm going to need you to help me because I'm trying to get to that point.
Yes, I can definitely help you. It's me and the dog now.
So you wrote this book, which you just had your book launch last weekend, which was an outstanding turnout. I didn't get a chance to physically be there because it was the same weekend as my mom's birthday, and I thought I was going to be able to do both, but I was able to tune in on Facebook Live.
Good.
So I did have an opportunity to see a little bit of it with the interview with Adrian, so our other really good friend and your birthday twin. And Adrian wrote the foreword for your book, which was just... So I got my book today and I was so excited. And I was like, oh my goodness. I just want to say from cover, everything, like this is a substantial book. And as a fellow author, I think it's safe to say that we want to make sure that we produce a quality product.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm curious to know, you work in education, you were a teacher, you're an administrator. Did you ever think that you were going to add author to your CV?
I did not, and I have not added it yet. It needs to be updated.
It needs to be updated.
I didn't, I've always been a writer back even when we were in junior high, I was writing poetry, and I've always been a reader as well. My mother would joke because I would hide a flashlight under the cover with books,
Yeah.
and I was always a reader and a writer, but it was for pleasure.
Yeah.
And I never really imagined myself writing a novel. And like you said, it's substantial. When
Yeah.
I saw it, I was like, wow.
Yes. Because, and that's the thing, like, it's almost 300 pages.
Yes, yes. It's amazing that I sat down and wrote all of this, but it was a journey. It did not happen overnight. It took a lot of time.
Mm-hmm. So
And yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, so what made you decide? So you've always, like you said, you've been a writer, avid reader. What made you decide that you would write a book and publish it?
Well, I was kind of at a point in my life after my divorce, and I had a young daughter. I had gotten my master's degree, and I asked one day I was at church actually, and I heard a message, and my pastor preached this message about the three Hebrew boys being in the fire, and they were thrown in there, and as they came out they weren't consumed and didn't smell like smoke.
Mm-hmm.
And it hit me, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh wow, that's interesting. But how I function, I've always heard words, like
Mm-hmm.
kind of, I hear words in my head. Even when I write poetry, I will hear it before I write it. And so I kept hearing these words over and over, don't smell like smoke. And I'm kind of like, okay, what's this?
Yeah.
And I came to this point in my life where I was alone. A lot of friendships had changed. I was divorced. I was a single mom. And I kind of just sat one day like, how did I get here? And I realized I had prayed a prayer, which is a good prayer to pray, but you have to be prepared for the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And I prayed for God to give me the right circle of people around me. And people started dropping like flies. And I looked up one day and said, okay, I'm here alone. What am I supposed to get from this? And in that moment, the title came back to me.
Mm-hmm.
And for kind of like a month or so after that, I just kept hearing the prologue. I would hear it in my head, kind of like a broken record.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what is strangers walking down the street? I'm like, what is this? And that day I said, well, let me write it down.
Mm-hmm.
And I started writing, and I literally wrote half of the first chapter.
Wow.
And I said, whoa, okay. I didn't know that was in me. And so I started in 2008 writing this book.
Okay.
And so I would pick it up. I would kind of feel it was time to write, and I would start writing. And I put it down in 2015. I had gotten about half of the way through. I let a few people read it,
Okay.
got some mixed reviews, and it was still in a draft form. And I stopped in 2015. And for 3 years, I didn't write. I didn't hear anything. I didn't feel inspired. I kind of had some people around me that weren't really feeding into me.
Mm-hmm.
And we turned the big 4-0 into, and it was kind of like, all right, I need to start living my life. And in 2018, I chose to pick it back up. And I started writing in 2020. I stopped because I didn't know how to finish the book. And the pandemic hit.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, you have nothing but time. And
Right.
my daughter, who is a lovely child, said, Mom, when are you going to finish your book?
Mm.
And I said, oh, it's nothing like your kids reminding you of what you said you would do.
Exactly.
And so by December of 20, right, by December of 2020, I had finished. And I decided, all right, it's time.
And this is your Obama year. You just turned 44.
Yes, ma'am.
So no better time than the present, of course, to release this book. I want to know, so in the book, there are 4 characters, right?
Yes.
And that's grace, faith, hope, and joy.
Yes.
How did you come up with those characters? I know that there is significance to all
Yes.
of this, obviously. And I think for myself, when I wrote my book, my focus was on grace,
Yes.
which is a part of the title in my book. So I'm just curious if you could share with the audience, because you mentioned that words would come to you and you had to obviously be in a certain space, a mental and emotional space to write. So as you were writing, did the characters come to you right away or did they develop over time?
Oh, that's a great question. The names came to me right away. I
Okay.
had the names written down and I didn't really know where I was going to go with them. But I knew that each person needed their own story. Initially, I kind of felt the Terry McMillan vibe, and let's all overlap the stories. But as I began to tell the first story, I knew that it was not going to necessarily link to the next one, that each person was going to have their own set of experiences, their own set of trials that they would go through. And so they became little separate stories. They're interwoven in a couple places, but for the most part, they develop through looking at different things that people deal with in life. And so I really had to go back. Webster is my friend because I did look up those definitions. The definitions I had heard people, you'll hear people say faith is this, grace is this, what is joy? But I really wanted to get to the heart of what they meant. And then from there, build that story around them. And so those stories kind of came from what is that? And how can I show that in that character's life? That was fun. It was fun.
Okay. And I was telling you earlier that when I got my book, I opened it up and now I wish I was supposed to mark it because
I looked and found it.
Oh, you did? Okay. I was like, oh my God. I always think about so I try to focus in on like different connections and things happening for a reason. So when I got the book and I opened it up to this particular page, and I think you told me that this was the chapter related to hope, right?
Yes, yes.
So I don't know. I'm going to say that maybe there's a hidden message in that for me that I need to kind of focus on. Now tell me, I know hope is chapter 3.
Yes. So I know you said you turned to a poem. The poem you turned to was on page 170.
170.
I think hope does have a message for you.
Yes. Okay. Yep. And yep. And I can't read it because if I read it, somebody may think that I'm talking.
Read it if you like, but
so look, I'm just going to tell folks when you get this, but you know what? We can get to that. Yeah, we can get to that. But I do like the way you've set this up as far as each character having their own story.
Yes.
What kept you going as far as you started, you stopped, but what were some of the things that may have happened in your life that kind of, motivated you to pick up the pen or get that laptop out and get back to writing?
Yeah, that's good. Relationships, you talked about it. And those connections, we connect with so many different people and they'll trigger a memory or trigger a thought. And so I will say sometimes when I write, it is when things have not gone exactly the way I want them to go.
Mhm.
And so my thoughts come there, but they also come in really happy times. And when I'm at peace, it's kind of like when I'm quiet and I'm in this space where all is well, I want to write about it. So it was a mixture. It was a
Okay.
mixture of that. You'll see that in the
Mhm.
book when you get a
Mhm.
chance to read it. But I definitely think that one of the inspirations for me was just when I was at home and I would hear music. So I love music. We all love music,
Yeah.
right? And music always reminds me of what was happening in my life.
Mhm.
And so I would turn on a song and immediately I would have this memory. And so the characters are based around certain time frames. So you'll see like a reference to President Bill Clinton,
Okay. Yeah.
that was the 90s.
Right.
And so you'll see those things. And so part of that was from the music I was listening to. For some chapters, I listened to there's songs in the book that I actually quoted.
Okay.
And for some chapters, I just turned that on and flowed.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's kind of different how inspiration happens. I know some people, I had some writer friends tell me you need to sit down and write for 30 minutes every night. And I
Mhm.
was like, I can't write like that.
Yeah.
That's not my style. I have to write when it hits me. And normally, like I said, it's either when something traumatic has happened, which is
Mhm.
a way of healing
Mhm.
actually, or if you're just in a really good space, then you can just let it go. And so those times when I didn't write, I was in a space that was so toxic or so traumatic that I wasn't able to express it
Mhm.
until afterwards.
Yeah, now that actually triggered something for me hearing you say that, because when I was writing, I knew that I wanted to share my story. There were different phases in my life where I was like, I need to share this. And when I initially started writing, it was going to be about one topic. But then my book is focused, it is definitely, I talk about my journey going through a divorce and becoming a single mom. And my book is about four
Yes.
other single mothers. Um, and I remember when I was working on the book, I had a writing coach because I needed someone to help me stay on track, on target. So it wasn't that I couldn't write. I just,
Right.
approach everything like I've got deadlines. So I needed she was more like an accountability person,
Okay.
you know. And I remember her saying to me, as I shared some of the drafts with her, and she said, "Are you telling your story or are you telling the story about this other individual? Because you're giving this person too much credit."
Oh, wow.
And then she asked me, "Are you writing this book because you just want to get something off your chest? Do you find does it need to be therapeutic? What have you?" And so I asked myself the question, how healed am I? Because like you
Mm,
mentioned, like when you were going through something toxic or traumatic, you couldn't write. There was a blockage there. And I think at
yes.
one point in time, I was using that as a way to like release, you know.
Yes. Yes.
So it's amazing how writers find different circumstances to kind of motivate them to share a story. And I believe in being transparent. I'd like for readers to be able to, you know, put themselves in my shoes and kind of,
Yes.
and
Yes.
this book, I could already tell because I started in the middle of the book and I was turning the pages like, what?
You're gonna yell and scream and cry.
Yeah, because I can't wait to find out what happened. But what are your thoughts about, I mean, since you are an avid reader, did you find when you were reading books, or do you gravitate towards books where you can see yourself in the story, or are you just able to read, any type of genre? And what do you want your readers of Don't Smell Like Smoke to get from this? Should they look for themselves, look for other people they know?
Yeah, wow. I typically like to read mystery books.
Okay.
That's been my genre of choice. When I was young, I worked in a bookstore actually,
Okay.
and I would read mysteries all the time. I've always been kind of like a action junkie with movies and the like, so I like those kind of books. But being in a bookstore, you get exposed to so much.
Mm-hmm.
So I would pick up some novels and some biographies every now and again if it was someone I was really into. But in writing this, I really was thinking, like you said, writing is healing in some way. You know, some people play music and some people draw or paint. And so this is therapeutic for me. Writing is one of those things that comes naturally to me. And so I can express myself very well through the writing. So initially, I can say it started as, let me just get some things out.
Yeah.
And then when I realized it was developing into stories, it became less about me and
Mm-hmm.
more about how do I develop this character so that, like you said, someone can relate to it.
Mm-hmm.
You may not have gone through what Grace went through, but maybe your sister did, maybe a friend, maybe you will meet someone who you'll say, oh, wow, that reminds me of this story. And let me show you how this person got through. When people read this book, it's called Don't Smell Like Smoke because we all have our own fires.
Yes.
Your fire may be divorce, your fire may be loss, your fire may be hurt, or a missing parent. It can be so many things that are your fire, but at the end of the day, each character learns about themselves
Mm-hmm.
and how to get through it and not smell like smoke. So at the end of the day, when you read this, I want you to see, how does this apply to your life? And that's kind of why at the end you have this workbook, because each person went through something and then it kind of helps you reflect. It's called self-reflection journal.
Mm-hmm.
So you can now reflect on how does your story compare, and maybe you don't have the same story, but it talks about the theme. So in Grace, you
Mm-hmm.
look at how she was dealing with identity and how to establish who she was and define herself. So all of the workbook questions deal with your own identity and an affirmation that helps you as you go through that journey, because I think every situation we go through, we're going to have to examine ourselves and reflect again because we're ever changing people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the goal. I really want people to see either themselves or to see how this story can help them get through their own life.
Well, I'm going to tell you that I am very clear now. I don't want you all to think that I'm spooky here, but apparently, hope, there's this message, because when I went to the reflections piece, I went right to page 275, Reflections on Hope.
Wow. Yes. And I know you're part of your story, and I know Hope. We will have a good conversation after you read Hope,
Yeah.
because I had an experience very similar to Hope.
Mm.
And even for me, reading and writing that, rereading it is difficult.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's personal, but it's also therapeutic.
That was, I'm so glad that you said that about reading it. Because it's different when you're writing it.
Yes.
And then when you go back and you read the finished product from beginning to end,
Yes.
how did that make you feel?
Woo. It's funny. My daughter tried to read a couple pages
Mm-hmm.
And she said, triggered, gotta go, gotta put it down, Ma. And I said, it's okay, honey, it might trigger you.
Yeah.
I've gone through, so it's weird because I had in the publishing process, I probably read it at least 100 times because you're looking for errors and
Exactly.
does
Yeah.
this sound right? And
Mhm.
why did I pick that word? But then I had to go back and get context. And so it was like rereading it all over again.
Mhm.
And there were times where I was kind of emotionally spent
Mhm.
going back through it because it was like, wow, this is heavy in some parts. And then there were some parts I was just like, you felt all the emotions that came with it,
Mhm.
but as an outside observer, which was very weird because I wrote it,
Right.
right?
But it also, I think sometimes when you're going back and you're reading what you've gone through or part of your journey, then it also gives you an opportunity to reflect to see how far you've come and
Yes.
what actually could have transpired.
Yes. How you could handle things differently.
Yeah.
Definitely. And
And
you see your growth.
exactly. You see your growth. I think also, depending on what it is, I think also you're probably going to be reflective on your faith as well, because I'm sure we all have gone through, if you've lived long enough, you've
Yes.
gone through some stuff that when
Yes.
you go back and you think about it and you have to say, God was really with me
Yes.
in
And
a
you're
lot of
like,
these
woo,
situations, right?
I went through all that and I don't look like it. Wow.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that's, for me, that is something where I think as women, I'll say this, as women, especially when you have accomplished women who, in our cases, we're both divorced, we're raising children, you've raised your daughter, you're the
Still raising.
still raising her from a
From a
distance.
distance.
Yeah. And when people see you, they wouldn't think, oh, Jeanine,
Mm-hmm.
had some struggles here or dealt with this challenge or what have you. They just see your outward appearance, the finished product. They see,
Right.
you're successful, you've moved up in your career, you have a beautiful family. That's what they see, but they don't recognize the struggle or what it took for you to get to where you are.
Yes.
And I have to tell people, I was saying, before we came on, the different inbox messages that you get.
Yes. I've been getting them back to back.
Yes.
Hi, everybody.
And it's so, I'll say this. I remember when I filed for divorce, and I think I announced that my divorce was final. And maybe I'm that weird person who remembers the date and the exact time that the judge said.
I remember.
Okay. Okay. I don't feel so bad then.
What
And
are we celebrating? Okay.
November 6th, it will be 8 years.
Wow. August 5th, it made 15.
Wow. Oh, yeah, we got to talk.
Yes.
But I remember people saying, oh, I'm so sorry. And I was like, I'm not. What are you sorry for? But I remember receiving so many inboxes, and I had to tell people, I'm not saying that I'm pro-divorce, but
Right.
what I don't believe in remaining in a toxic, unhealthy relationship.
Not at all.
Not for the sake of the children, or not because society says, as a woman, you should be married or you should, seek companionship. If you are not happy,
Yeah. Get
and
out.
I think you mentioned that Raven said to you, Mom, when are you going to finish writing that book? And it's amazing how our children will encourage us and influence us to do certain things, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I remember my children saying to me, one of the reasons why I stayed married as long as I did was because of my children, because
Yeah.
I grew up in a home with both my parents, and I didn't want them to grow up in a single parent household. But I
Right.
remember them saying, "You're not happy. We just want you to be
Mm.
happy." And so it's interesting how we can also get life from our children, and we have given them life.
Yes, yes.
Um, but what would you say to people who see Jeanine A. Rogers and maybe think that Jeanine A. Rogers didn't have any struggles?
Woo, it's a lie. It's a lie.
The devil is a lie.
It's a lie. I mean, I would say, when we, like, you just said so much, there's so much I could say about that. But I mean, honestly, that's the prologue of this book. And when you read it, it's very indicative of what you just said. When you meet someone, you meet their outward appearance.
Yeah.
You can see, and I've had people say, "Oh, you published a book, you're an author, oh my goodness," as if every other issue you've ever had melted away because you've had this accomplishment.
Mhm.
No, I'm still a human. I still go to work. I still have bills.
Right.
ComEd does not care that I published this book. Okay. The mortgage company does not care.
Right.
But when you see people, I think that's why you have to get to know their story. I always believe that there's something more to people. It doesn't matter if they are high ranking or, as you would maybe consider not as successful. Everyone has a story. And when you learn someone's story, it gives you so much more understanding about why they do what they do, what their thoughts are, how they function. And so when you see me and you see this book, just know that there was a lot of molding of the clay that
Mhm.
had to happen for this to come. And I have not yet arrived. We're not going to say that I am at my peak. It's a very high part of the mountain, but I believe there's more for me. But that doesn't mean that anything you accomplish is going to come with some kind of trial. If it was easy, it wouldn't be worth it.
Mhm.
And so when you see people and they look all put together, know that there's a story behind it. And if you really care to know the person, get to know their story, because then you understand what is behind that. And that's where the substance comes in. That's where the connection, like you said earlier, comes in, because we just connected like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
We got to talk about this. We
Right.
got to talk about that. And human relationships are the currency of life. Someone coined that phrase. I love it though, because once you connect with someone, you see how similar we are instead of how different. And I think when you can empathize with someone and what they've gone through, you have a different respect for them.
Mhm.
That's how I see it. So when people see me, I hope they know I am not perfect.
Yes.
I might strive for perfection, but I'll have some bumps along the way because I'm human.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to know, how did you manage what was, I guess, what was the most challenging aspect of writing this novel?
Mm, well, finishing, finishing. Anybody who wants to write a book, I do want to share with people who may be interested in telling their stories, because as you said, we've gotten a lot of inboxes,
Yes.
and you'll never see yourself as inspiration to others until you do something. But then people start saying, oh my God, I need to finish my book. I
Mhm.
want to tell my book. I want to tell my story. Um, I would just say, don't quit on yourself. Don't quit, because there were many times when I had friends close to me who were like, I'm not really feeling that. And I was like, oh, crush my little pipe dreams. And I'm like, okay, well, what do we do now? And I could have quit. I could have said, that's it. I could have stopped at that point. But I knew that there was more that I wanted to write and share. So you do need, like you said, a really good person as an advisor,
Mhm.
someone with experience. And no matter how long it takes, this was literally like a 12-year journey.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
Because here, to me, from what I get from this is that you didn't quit. It may have, and it doesn't matter, I guess, from my perspective, doesn't matter how long it took you. Nobody really could have, should have, well, I shouldn't say they shouldn't have known, but you know what I mean? But you're very
Yeah.
transparent in
Yeah.
sharing that. Because I do hear people, ask the question, well, how long did it take you to write the book? Or people who talk about, oh, I wrote this book in 30 days, or, you know, but I just say you didn't quit, you didn't give up. So
And
I
it's
think
all about what works for you.
exactly.
I mean, I might have written 20 pages at a time or 40 pages, but then when I paused, it may have been a longer pause because I had a young daughter. I was, into my career. There were other things that took precedence, but I always picked it back up.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then things that came, so much came at the end, and Gina, you would not believe, so much came to me at the end, and people just drop little nuggets
Mm-hmm.
when you're close. I think when you're close to that finish line, things start to line up.
Yeah.
And a very special person told me, "You write poetry. Why isn't your poetry in your book?"
Mm.
That was an addition after it was finished. The workbook.
I appreciated that when I opened up the page and I saw the poetry first.
Hey, poetry is my passion. I used to do open mics all the time, and spoken word, and they were just like, why wouldn't you put that in? That's part of you.
Exactly. Um, what would you say was, and don't say finishing the book, what was the most rewarding part of this journey for you? Was it finishing the book?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, but yes, I think having it all come together. It was in pieces. It was finished in pieces. And so sometimes you can do one part and then you're like, how's it gonna mesh with the
Mhm.
next part? So like I was saying, the poetry that got put in, and then I started coming up with the journal questions, but it wasn't a journal. It was just like questions at the end of the chapter.
Okay.
And then I said, that's not enough. Let me, embellish a little bit. Let me develop this. And so seeing it all come together, I think when I got my proof copy, that was that moment when I was like, this is real.
Yeah.
This is real.
Yeah.
And I did it, and I'm proud and thankful
Mhm.
for the strength to do it. So
Now
yeah.
let me ask you this, because, and I'm just thinking about, when you started and when you finished, did you actually, because I don't know why my gut is telling me, did you actually handwrite or did you type? You hand wrote this, didn't you?
It was a mixture. So I have my notebooks. I
Uh-huh.
feel like, remember when Tupac came out with the book, A Rose That Grew from Concrete?
Uh-huh.
I was like, one day I'm gonna put my manuscript out in my scribble scrabble. But yes, it was handwritten for a long time. I had notebooks that I would just keep and I would pick up. And then one day I was like, what if you lose this notebook? What if something happens? What if you spill coffee on this page? And I started typing it. And once I got maybe halfway through, the
Mhm.
rest became typing. But it was funny, I would have points throughout the day when words would come to me, but my computer wasn't there.
Yep.
So I have notes in my phone that
Yep.
I would be like, hold on, I'm
Uh-huh.
talking it.
Yes.
I tried to record it first. Okay,
Yep.
this is funny. I tried to record it first and type it, and I couldn't keep up with me talking. I was like, this is not working. Not working. So yeah, it's handwritten for at least the first half and a few other parts. But yeah, it's funny. But the typing now, it just kind of works. It just
Yeah.
keeps, yeah.
And I asked that question only because that's how I started as well. I had my journal, my
Really?
notebook, and then I would use the phone, or sometimes if something came to me and I had a little sticky note. This was before I even thought to use the phone. to take notes. And then I transitioned to my laptop. So
Yes. And scraps of paper napkins.
yeah. Now, I don't know why. I feel like maybe we need to credit one of our English teachers. I don't know. We had so many amazing English teachers at Morian Park, but I feel like the fact that we had, similar tactics with going through this process.
No. Did you have Miss Conway?
I did. Shout out to Miss Conway.
Shout out. I loved Miss Conway. She developed us as writers, but she taught us like about the different genres and to appreciate different styles. So I do like that.
I got to tell you something funny. One day I made a Facebook post, and I don't know, my fingers I may have been thinking one thing and typed another. And she sent me an inbox message. She said, Gina, you may want to go back and reread that post.
Did she edit you?
But I am the snob, I text the way I speak. So okay. I'm sorry, I don't do the shorthand. I need people to translate. And so I was so embarrassed, but I was also thankful. I was like, see, she thought so much of me that she pulled me by the coattail and was like, look.
She will pull you by the coattail on Facebook.
Yes. But I was glad that she didn't go on my post and say anything.
Right. At least she DM'd you.
Yes.
So you can kind of correct it on the back end.
Yes. So if you're watching, Mrs. Conway, thank you.
Yeah, we love you. She bought a book.
Oh, good. Awesome. Awesome.
I'm excited to see what she thinks, our English teacher.
Yes. So that's one thing that I cannot, and thank you so much. I'm so, I don't know. Look, I got my personally signed copy. Oh. But one thing that I thought was absolutely incredible, and I kind of shedded a tear because I thought about, there were so many different thoughts that came to my mind when I picked up this book today, when I received it. I thought about us as 7th and 8th graders. I don't know why I thought about our 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C.
Oh, yes, that was fun. We won't tell all those secrets.
No, we won't. But to have one of your best friends and your birthday twin, the accomplished Adrian Samuels Gibbs, to write the foreword, I think was just, I was like, this is truly an example of friendship, sisterhood, all of that, because you guys, have a 30 plus year friendship, right?
Only one more than us, only 33.
Okay.
Whatever.
But I think I was thinking about how all of us have done well for ourselves, and then we are still connected in some way, shape, or form. It's just like, right before the pandemic, I was down in Atlanta for a work.
I saw.
You got to hang out with Hadia. Just love her to pieces. So she already knows if my babies go to school in Atlanta, she got to look out for the people.
That's right. That's right.
I love the way that we can all come together and support one another. Yes. It doesn't matter whether or not we talked last week or if it was 5 years ago or what have you. We can all pick up from where we left off. And I think that speaks volumes.
Yes, absolutely.
There was something, and it just made me chuckle. If you don't mind, I want to, or maybe you should read it. But
yeah, I don't mind.
This made me laugh though. Once upon a time, Jeanine Rogers and I were the scrawny little smart girls in French class. We were sassy, thought we were sexy, and for sure believed we knew all the ins and outs of school, men, and life all at the grand old age of 14. And that made me laugh because I'm just like,
Yes,
we were something else at that age.
we were. And all of that is true. We thought we were
Yes.
grown.
Yes. But the other piece that stood out for me too is that the upbringing that we had, we were considered, a lot of us, to be good girls because there were just certain things that we just wouldn't do and couldn't do,
wouldn't do.
Exactly.
Yes.
And you were raised, and I remember your mom from when we, were younger.
Yeah.
So you were raised in a single parent home as well. And how do your relationship with your mom and your upbringing? I know obviously she did a phenomenal job.
Awesome.
But what would you say, what type of influence would you say that she had on you? And also as far as the support that you received from her in order to get this manuscript completed? Because I'm sure she was your biggest cheerleader.
She is. She still is today. She's like, you're doing a podcast. Let me know. How do I see it? She has always been, my mom put everything on hold when she had me. And I don't necessarily agree with that, being a single mother now. So to our single mothers out there, you really have to choose your journey. I still think that you can develop yourself while you nurture your children. But she did everything. She gave me experiences. She believed that our young Black boys and girls were not any less privileged. They just didn't have the same experiences. Yeah. So every time she could take me somewhere, and I don't know how she did it, because she tells me all the time, oh, we were poor. I was like, we were? Because I sure didn't know, because she made it happen. Black moms make it happen no matter what. And so she always told me, do whatever it is that you love. And she encouraged me, she exposed me to many things. So parents, like single moms, expose your children. They don't have to latch on to it, but give them a chance to kind of discover what they like. So she gave me that chance, and she pushed me, don't get me wrong. It was no nonsense, it was A's and B's better come home, right?
Right.
She pushed me for excellence, but she also, if I fell, if I stumbled, she was always there to say, all right, I got you. Let me help you back up. And that's from a child till today, just even 2 days ago, having a crisis with my daughter. And she was like, all right, let's roll. And that's been her. So, and I think it's funny because you don't really recognize that when you're young. You just think that's your mom until you grow up and you hear other people didn't have that. Right. And it's such a blessing. And I try to build that into our stories in the book, so that every character has some type of mother figure, maybe not a mom, maybe a friend, maybe an aunt, maybe someone, because you may not have a mom, but you may have a spectacular grandma or someone who works with you who takes on that mothering role. And I really think as women, we need that. We need to be connected because we help each other through things. We have that nurturing sense, but also that tough love sometimes, get it together. What are you doing out here? I know there's more. So she's just been awesome, amazing. She was actually one of my beta readers, my first beta reader. Yes.
Awesome.
Even though she marked it up, she was like, it's right here. What is that? But it was funny. It was a big point of vulnerability for me to give her this, because there's some very personal things in here that she could recognize from my life. And she was like, did this really happen? And some stuff I was like, no, Ma, that's, no. And then other stuff I had to say, yeah. And we had to have some talks. And she's like, wow, I never knew what was happening in this instance and that, or how you dealt with it. So it brought us closer as mom and daughter.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
You're gonna make me cry.
We're not crying.
You know what? And because I'm thinking
and you just celebrated your mom.
Yes, my mom turned 69. So she's a Libra, just like you. But I was just thinking about, how no matter how old you get, your mother is still going to be your mother.
Yes.
And is still going to mother you.
Yes.
Because I know when my mother read my book, she didn't know about something. She knew some things, but she didn't know everything. And it was an interesting journey for me because she was kind of like the outsider. Our parents they envision their children's lives to turn out to be a certain way.
Perfect.
Yeah. And they may suggest or give their unsolicited advice.
Unsolicited.
And tell you what they think you should do based upon either their own experiences or because of what they wish for their children. Right. Not realizing that sometimes they've got to make the best decision for themselves in their circumstance.
Right.
And so I just remember my mom saying to me, she was like, "I'm sorry."
Wow.
Because she said, I didn't look at it from your perspective and what you were actually, dealing with or going through. And I think that's pretty big. We come from a generation where that generation of parents, they don't really apologize.
No. Yeah, my mom had a few apology moments. And I think if you're a mom and if you're human and you really want to be honest, you have to be able to admit where you messed up. There are those, you can't be too big to say this one wrong. And that's so beautiful for your mom to be able to say that to you and you all to get past it. And it just really strengthens you.
Yeah.
They're not from the apologizing generation at all.
But it's I think it's amazing how a book can help to cultivate a relationship, how to strengthen a relationship, make you go back and reflect on some things. So for those of you who want to write, who want to become a published author, it can be done. But it takes a lot of time, commitment,
dedication. Patience, a lot of patience. If I might just add, one of the most challenging part, writing, I think, is the easiest part. And people don't realize that because people think they want to write this perfect book. But once you have it written, you are nowhere close to the finish line. Right. And I learned that the hard way because I self-published.
Yeah.
And even though I had an editor and she worked with me and she's my sorority sister, and she has her own company, which was great. It's just so many moving pieces that you have to learn.
Yes.
And I feel like now I could do a class on it because the number of hours.
Yeah, I was going to say you learn a lot. But what I really want to know, because this cover is hot. Okay.
Cover.
Oh, I don't know why I can't get my camera right.
Oh, I can see it. I love it.
So tell me about it, because I'm focused on the red bottoms and the flames. How did you come up with this cover? Because this
when I tell you this cover was a process, I had a picture in my head, kind of when I wrote it, I really didn't know what the cover would look like, but I was like smoky something. And I felt like there should be like a person walking through some embers or something like that. So I took my non-graphic arts abilities and tried to create my own cover.
Oh,
It
Lord.
was okay. Yeah, I was real ambitious, honey. I downloaded an app and I was like, oh, I can do this. You know, we're millennial women, you know,
Yeah.
we can do it. We don't need it. Hey, I can do it. And so I did it and I showed it to a few people and they were like, it's okay. No, it didn't pop.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay. And then I looked at books because they always tell you look at books that are in your genre
Yes.
and bestsellers, because you know we claim a bestseller. So I'm like, let me look at some bestsellers and see. And I tried to kind of mimic what they were doing, but it didn't fit.
Yeah.
And I got to the point where I said, let me look, Google it. And Google said you should make sure that you spend a significant, don't be afraid to spend on your cover because it's the first thing people will see.
Yeah.
It'll catch their eye. And so I reached out to a friend and they referred me to this gentleman, Ahmad Lee. He's a graphic artist. Shouts out to Ahmad. I've never met him in person.
Okay.
The internet is what it is, but we connected. He's from Chicago, and I gave him my amateur pictures and said, I want something with some smoke and some fire and a lady walking through, something like that. And at first, I had a lady on the cover, and she was not African American, and my mother was like, "That can't be on the cover." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I marketed to everyone. So he gave me this markup and he had all these different, so he had the general, he had fire and he had some smoky effects and he had these real kind of look like bedazzled shoes on the front on fire. But I'm sorry, they look like stripper shoes to me.
We can't have stripper shoes on the cover.
And stripper shoes on the front of the cover. And so, you know what, I talked to, you know, I have a really close friend who was just like, look, when you think about women who are established and women who have gone through something, there's something that makes them stand out. And you want shoes on your cover. And I don't know any shoe that stands out more than a red bottom, right? And FYI, I do not have red bottoms in my closet, but that's on the list now that I'm an author.
That's right. Manifest it.
Yes. But I wanted something that was gonna pop. And so we played around and then he said, well, look at this. And I had to find all these different images of red bottoms, the right image. And when he put this together, I was like, that's it. Yeah. That is it. And seeing it on display, when you held it up even, I'm just like, that is my book.
Yeah.
Wow. But I wanted it to look professional. Like you said, I didn't want it to look like I self-published. I've seen some books that are self-published and they look self-published and I wanted it to look professional. Yes. So even if you already self-published, just redo your cover and publish it again.
Yes.
Yes.
The cover matters. It matters. It really, really does.
It does. When I worked at a bookstore, I was actually responsible for doing displays. And that was the first thing that caught your eye. We put books on display so people could see the cover when they walked in. And we would decide which books to put out based on covers and what would catch eyes. And so I was like, well, I think this is different. I like being different. I don't want it to look like everybody else's. And I think this will catch your eye.
Well, it definitely has caught my eye. And look, I'm going to tell you, I see myself because, you know, I wear 3-4 inch heels because I'm trying to feel like I'm over 5 feet tall. So
All
I
right,
can
you can
relate
feel better.
already. I don't own red bottoms. I wish I did, but I can relate because I'm thinking about actually my black patent leather stilettos that I
Yes. Oh,
have.
patent leather. And what do women put on when they want to look beautiful and they want to show that they have arrived? You know, when we dress up, we got to have heels
That's right.
because it just does something to your confidence, it boosts your look. And so heels just kind of stood out to me. I wanted them on the front.
Well, I think this is just an absolutely amazing cover. So now, here's the important thing. Tell people where they can pick up Don't Smell Like Smoke.
Yes, well, you can go to the website, www.don'tsmelllikesmoke.com. You can order directly from the website. I also have a blog on the website that I'm going to be pushing. We're going to be having weekly blogs. I will probably post portions of our interview on there just because I think readers like to hear about authors and their inspiration. It is also available on Amazon and Kindle. And for now, it's on Kindle Unlimited. So if you're an Unlimited member, you can get it. And I actually downloaded my book on Amazon. I think that was the most fun I had was downloading. And I'm going to show you, it is on my phone right now. And I was like, oh my God,
Oh,
that's my book on Amazon. So that was fun. You can also follow me on Facebook at Don't Smell Like Smoke or Instagram at Don't Smell Like Smoke. So there'll be regular posts and updates and pictures. And as more events come up, I'll post them there. And join our contact list so that you can keep up to date with everything as we go.
well, you know what I'm doing right now is Light It Up podcast is about to follow you on Instagram and on Facebook. So I'm doing that right now.
Yes.
I'm so excited.
Yes, me too.
See,
And please write a review. Oh,
yes. Make sure you guys write reviews. That is so very important.
yes. So important because if you're a person like me, I like reading what other people thought. And it kind of influences me to say, oh, okay. So please write a review after you've read it. And I'd love to read them because I just want to know what you think about the book.
Now, let me ask you this. So you had your book launch. Are you going to have any other readings or special events or book signings coming up over the next few weeks?
So my girlfriend, Adrienne, Miss Forward, has told me every major city now. So she said, you need to go to every city.
Adrienne, I need you in my life.
Yes. So right now I am starting to reach out to bookstores and to get it on some shelves. I do have a few people who have inquired about book clubs. So there'll be some book clubs getting the book and I can do a guest appearance.
Okay.
I'm definitely going to be planning for Atlanta. There's a Black-owned bookstore there who she's extended the invitation for me to do a reading and whatever else comes up.
Hey, I may just have to hop on the flight and go down to Atlanta.
Let's go. Let's go.
I had fun the last time I was there.
Oh, Atlanta is always fun. And Heidi is a great host.
Yes, she is.
Yes. So I'm hoping to be booked up soon with some future events and dates. Of course, I'm open. So if you're interested, if you know anyone who's interested, have them reach out on the website.
Awesome. Well, I am so extremely happy for you and excited for you. I know what I'm going to be doing over the next few days. This is going to be a part of my self-care. So
yes,
I'll be reading because I'm like super excited. So those
are you going to start in the middle?
No. I'm not going to start with hope. I am going to start with grace. So that's grace, faith, hope. And then it's only fitting, though, that you end it with joy. And that's what I did not ask you about. You started with grace. How did you, before we kind of wrap up, how did you decide the order that you would place your characters?
I wish I had like a real deep answer, but they came to me in that order. And so as I wrote them, I did not write it with that progression in mind, but I knew that grace was the beginning. And so that story in itself kind of goes through her beginning and moving on. But joy, I knew joy was the final chapter, but I knew I couldn't write joy until I had joy, which is why it was very difficult for me to write it in that gap. I really had to pause and say, how am I going to write this? Because I can't write, I'm not a false person. And I mean, I know a lot of writers make up their stories, but I always put my heart into my writing. So if I don't have it, you're going to know it's going to sound trite or forced. And I didn't want it to sound forced. So I really had to pause and wait until it came to me. And it came to me in COVID. And I just said, okay, COVID helped me find joy because I had to find myself, as we all did, because we were by ourselves, right?
Hello. Yes.
and it helped me because I had to get past some things, you know, all those things that came ahead of time. But joy is inspirational for me because it's left open. It gives you an opportunity to say, what are those possibilities? Joy still has her own trials and fires and the like, but she, I believe, embodies the spirit of possibility and opportunity. And so I wanted to end there because the sky's the limit.
Well, you just preached a word right there.
I don't want to be a preacher.
Well, no. I'm just saying, because I get it. That resonated with me. It really did.
I'm so glad. I'm telling you, and that warms my heart. That makes me want to cry, because if you get that, I just think it opens the door for your own life. I learned so much about myself that I'm not going to allow anyone to put limits on me, because now that I've done this, I know there's no limit to what I can do. And I want everybody who reads this to know, no matter what you went through, there's no limit to what can become from your life.
Yeah. All right. So before I start crying, because I don't have any clinics around.
I'm so proud of you and your podcast.
I'm proud of you. And I'm glad that I can give you an opportunity too to talk about your book and, you know, share your experiences. And this is exactly what I wanted to do, is to be able to highlight folks who, you know, are doing some great things that maybe other people may not hear about. So
I'm going to share your podcast. I think it's truly inspirational. And you're so one. Just the fact that you and Adrian are both my friends of 30 plus years, and you're doing great things and have these platforms. I'm just like, wow. You know, when you ask for the right circle of people around you, he really will give you the right circle. So I'm just so excited.
I'm excited for you. Look, we are doing some really good things, great things. And still, even with what you do from your day to day with helping children.
The babies.
Yeah.
Yes, I was tying shoes in pre-K today.
But that's okay. The babies need you too.
Yes. And we love the babies too.
Yes. Well, I thank you so much for taking time out of your day to chat with me and talk about Don't Smell Like Smoke. Remember, guys, if you want this book, you can go to the website, don'tsmelllikesmoke.com. You can also get the book on Amazon, but I'm pushing, go to don'tsmelllikeSmoke.com so you can get a signed copy. Because you can't get a signed copy on Amazon.
You got to find me.
That's right. And my girl is on the move, so you may not be able to find her. So order from the website.
That's right. That's right.
Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
So, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, don't forget to light it up and shine bright like a diamond. Thanks for joining me this week on Light It Up. Make sure you visit my website at www.lightituppodcast.com or www.aginahmuhammad.com. You can also find me on social media using the handle @LightItUpPodcasts. If you like what you've heard, please be sure to hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, I'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or you can simply tell a friend about the show. Be sure to tune in every Tuesday for a new episode. Until next time, light it up and shine bright like a diamond.